The instant you feel the need to justify your existence to another person, you have already surrendered your power. Picture the scene. You're at a dinner table. Someone makes a remark about your character. A colleague questions your decision in a meeting. A partner throws an accusation your way. Your chest tightens. Your face flushes. The ancient part of your brain screams, defend, clarify, make them understand. So you speak, you offer context, you explain your reasoning, you try to prove your innocence, and in that moment, you have placed their foot on your neck. Why? Because the world doesn't operate on truth, it operates on perception. The person who scrambles to explain is the person who submits. The person who defends is the person who accepts the other's right to be their judge. Machiavelli, that dark student of power, understood a law of human nature that modern politeness tries to erase. He knew that influence isn't about being factually correct, it's about who controls the frame of reality. And the second you defend yourself, you step into their courtroom and you put on the prisoner's uniform. But what if you simply refused to show up to court? For most people, life is a constant performance review. They react to every frown, every critique, every sideways glance. Someone expresses disappointment, they apologize. Someone levels an accusation, they explain. They are perpetually on trial, trying to prove their worth to a jury that was never qualified to judge them. It's exhausting. It's a slow bleed of your personal energy. But there is another path. A way of being so self-contained, so internally anchored, that criticism doesn't just bounce off, it evaporates before it even lands. This isn't about building a wall of arrogance. It's about a fundamental shift in where you source your reality. Today, we are going to dismantle the psychology of the explanation. We'll look at why your nervous system betrays you the moment you're challenged and how to rewire it using a strategy Machiavelli would have admired. I'm going to show you how to invert the power dynamic in seconds, how to leave an attacker questioning themselves, how to deploy silence not as emptiness but as a psychological force field. But a warning, this requires you to starve a part of yourself you've been feeding your entire life. The part that begs to be liked. The part that needs external approval to feel safe. If you can kill that need, you become dangerous. You become unassailable. Let's begin. First, we have to understand the trigger. Why is your first instinct to explain? It's imprinted on you. Picture yourself at 5 years old. A parent or teacher accuses you of something. What was the only way to avoid punishment? Explanation. I didn't mean to. It was an accident. You learned that authority figures held the power of judgment. You learned that your safety depended on convincing them you were good. The problem is, you grew up, but that emotional program didn't expire. You now project that childhood authority onto everyone you meet. Your boss, your partner, even strangers on the internet. When you defend yourself, you are unconsciously saying, "You are the judge, and I am the child seeking your approval." It is a posture of weakness. And humans, tuned to the frequency of power dynamics, can smell that submission from across the room. Machiavelli famously advised the prince that it's better to be feared than loved. Let's translate that for modern life, it is better to be respected than understood. When you rush to defend, you are prioritizing their understanding over their respect. You are pleading, "Please see my good intentions." But a sovereign doesn't plead. A king does not explain his decrees to every peasant who questions them. A wolf doesn't justify its kill to the ravens watching from the trees. The moment you start offering reasons, presenting evidence, or rehashing past events to prove your point, you signal that your internal state depends on their agreement. You have handed them the remote control to your emotions. This is the trap of seeking validation. You believe that if you just explain it perfectly, they'll nod and say, "Ah, I see, I was wrong." How often does that actually happen? Almost never. Because the accusation was never about the facts. It was a test of your frame. They didn't challenge you to find the truth. They challenged you to see if you would jump through their hoop. And you jumped. The first step to becoming untouchable is realizing the courtroom doesn't exist. There is no judge. There is no jury. There is only you and the reality you choose to inhabit. When you stop appointing others as your judges, their accusations stop sounding like verdicts. They start sounding like opinions, and an opinion is just a noise someone makes. So what happens when you refuse to play? Let's paint the scene. Someone throws a verbal dart. You are so incredibly self-centered. The old you would say, "What? No, I'm not. I did X for you yesterday, and I was planning to do Y. I'm just stressed." Now imagine the alternative. They say, "You're so self-centered." You look at them. You hold eye contact. You don't blink. Your face is a placid lake. You let the silence sit there for 4, 5, 6 seconds. Do you understand what happens in that silence? It's a psychological black hole. The human mind panics in a conversational void. It signals that the rules of the game have broken. When you refuse to react, you hold a mirror up to their aggression. They are forced to sit in the tension they created. They will almost always crack and speak again. Well, I mean, not always self-centered, but right now, you are. Why are you looking at me like that? The power has flipped in an instant. They are now defending themselves against your non-reaction. This is the grey rock method, but weaponized. You become a void. You cannot attack a void. You cannot punch smoke. By refusing to provide the friction of a defense, their attack loses all momentum and leaves them stumbling forward, off balance. This requires immense self-control because inside, your ego is shrieking, "Say something, defend your honor." You must learn to leash that dog. Machiavelli knew that the most formidable person in any room is the one who cannot be read. If you defend, you reveal your vulnerabilities. You show them exactly where the pressure points are. "I'm not stupid," you yell. Now they know your insecurity is about intelligence. "I'm not a bad person." Now they know your moral standing is a soft target. Silence reveals nothing. It is a dark mirror. But sometimes silence isn't appropriate. Sometimes you must speak, but you must never be defensive. You use conversational Aikido. You don't push back against their force, you redirect it. There's a concept called agree and amplify. It creates beautiful chaos in an attacker's mind. If someone levels a ridiculous accusation, defending it gives it weight. It suggests it's a serious claim worthy of a serious response. Instead, you lean in. You amplify it until it becomes absurd. Attacker, you are way too obsessed with money. You're greedy. Defensive response, "I'm not greedy, I just want security for my family." Machiavellian response, "You're right. I actually have a secret vault where I swim in gold coins, Scrooge McDuck style. It's wreaking havoc on my chiropractor bills." You say this with a flat, calm delivery, maybe a slight smirk. What have you done? You've refused the insult. You've demonstrated you're not insecure about money. You've turned their weapon into a joke. You've established that you control the reality of the conversation, not them. This is the state of amused mastery. It is the posture of a parent watching a toddler's tantrum. You don't get angry. You are calmly amused by the drama because you are not on their level. Defending yourself would be getting on the floor and screaming with the toddler. Stand up, look down, smile. Robert Greene, in his study of power, discusses the importance of recreating yourself, of refusing the labels others try to pin on you. When they try to box you in, fighting the box keeps you tethered to it. Mocking the box dissolves it. You're so arrogant. I prefer unapologetically confident, but I'll take the feedback under advisement. You never think about anyone but yourself. I'm working on it. I'll pencil you in for next Tuesday. It's cutting, it's dismissive, and it signals a profound wholeness. A person who is truly generous laughs when called stingy. A person who is deeply intelligent laughs when called foolish. If you are defending, it's because a part of you fears their arrow might have hit a target that was already there. That's the shadow work you can't outrun. Let's go deeper into the architecture of the interaction. Every conflict has a hidden structure, a judge and a defendant. The judge asks questions. Why did you do that? What were you thinking? The defendant answers. Whoever asks the questions holds the power. Whoever answers is losing ground. The most potent Machiavellian maneuver is to simply refuse the role of defendant and seize the role of judge. You do this by answering their question with a question, or by turning the analysis back on them. Them, why are you always late? Defensive you, traffic was a nightmare. Machiavellian you, why does my arrival time seem to provoke such a strong emotional response in you? Boom. The spotlight is off you and on them. We are no longer discussing the clock, we are discussing their emotional stability. Them, you're being completely unreasonable. Machiavellian you, what is it about this that makes you feel the need to label my perspective as unreasonable? You are psychoanalyzing them. You have stepped outside the ring and are now the commentator, not the fighter. This is infuriating to someone trying to manipulate you. They want you on the defensive. Instead, you are observing them like a scientist. It's fascinating you see it that way. Does saying that out loud make you feel better? These phrases are verbal shields. They acknowledge the noise, but they refuse to accept the content. They are a boundary. You are saying, this is your stuff, not mine. You keep it. This isn't just a tactic. It's a philosophical stance. It's the deep knowing that other people's perceptions of you are not your responsibility. Their anger is theirs to manage. Their disappointment is theirs to process. When you defend, you are trying to carry their emotional baggage for them. Stop. Let them carry their own weight. Now for a paradox. Sometimes the most powerful move is to agree. Not weak agreement, but the agreement of the abyss. Someone is screaming at you, listing your flaws. You look them in the eye and say, calmly, you're right. And then you stop. You're right, I did handle that poorly. This is fogging. If you throw a rock into a fog bank, what happens? Nothing. No thud, no echo. It disappears. When you agree, you steal their momentum. They are pushing against a door, expecting it to be locked. You swing it open, and they fall flat on their face. They wanted a fight. Resistance validates their anger. Agreement neutralizes it, but nuance is critical. You agree with the factual element without accepting the shame attached to it. There's a difference between admitting a mistake and accepting a character assassination. You messed up the client report. You're incompetent. Defense, I'm not incompetent. The data was corrupted. Power move, you're right. The report has errors. I'll correct it immediately. Notice what you didn't address. Incompetent. You addressed the fact, ignored the insult. You owned the action, but rejected the identity. This signals supreme confidence. Only someone secure in their capability can admit a mistake so easily. Insecure people fight to the death to prove they're perfect. Secure people say, my mistake, and move on. Machiavelli would call this disarming the enemy. If you lay down your sword, they look foolish holding theirs. It makes them look hysterical and you look grounded. And history is written by the grounded. None of this works if it's just a performance. If you use these lines but your voice wavers, your eyes dart, your energy screams, please validate me, it will fail. Dark psychology is 20% technique and 80% internal frame. You have to build the inner architecture to support the outer silence. This brings us back to the shadow. Why do their words hurt? Because they are touching a wound you already have. If I said you have purple skin, you wouldn't get angry. You'd think I was crazy. You wouldn't defend. But if I call you a failure and you react, it's because a part of you whispers, what if he's right? The ultimate defense is not a verbal parry. It's self-knowledge. It's staring into your own darkness, owning your flaws, and accepting your whole self. When you know you are capable of selfishness, and someone calls you selfish, you can say, sometimes, yes. When you know you are capable of cruelty, you can say, I can be. You cannot shame a person who has already accepted themselves. You cannot expose a person who has nothing left to hide. This is what it means to be untouchable. You have integrated the parts of yourself that others try to use as weapons. You become like the wind. The arrows pass through. So here is your 7-day challenge. It's called Zero Defense. For the next week, no matter what happens, you are forbidden from explaining yourself. If you're late, say I'm late. No reasons. If you spill a drink, say I spilled it. No blame. If someone misunderstands you, let them misunderstand. Sit in the fire of that discomfort. Feel the urge to fix their perception, to be the good guy, and watch that urge turn to ash. Observe what happens. You'll see confusion, then a strange respect, then a pull of magnetism. People are drawn to certainty, and nothing screams certainty louder than a person who doesn't need to explain why they exist. You are reclaiming your energy. You are stepping out of the role of the child and into the role of the sovereign. The world will try to bait you. It loves a reaction. Don't give it one. Keep your mystery. Keep your power. Keep your silence. If this philosophy resonates with that deeper part of your mind, the part tired of performing for an audience that doesn't pay, then you know what to do. Hit subscribe. Not for me. Do it for yourself. Because you're done being prey in a world of predators.